Okay, so colon hydrotherapy is very much like the name implies. It's hydrating your colon. The therapy is the exercise, strengthening and toning of the muscle of the bowel, all right? So I'm going to use this chart as an example. This is a colon therapy chart made by Dr. Bernard Jensen or Dr. Norman Walker. Oh wait, it's a Norman Walker. And this is what an ideal healthy colon would look like, minus all the numbers and words. It's the last 5 feet of your digestive tract. So if you imagine that your digestive tract begins in your mouth where you ingest the food and it ends where you evacuate. This is where you're evacuating, and this last 5 feet of that digestive tract is what we refer to as your colon. Okay, it's got a couple other names just to make sure that we're all quite confused about our body parts. It's your bowel. Okay, we all know we have our bowel movements. It's also known as your large intestine. It's got a larger lumen or channel than your small intestine, for example, that's got a more narrow lumen or channel, which is where most absorption of nutrition occurs, is in the small intestine. The colon is responsible for absorbing liquid out of the foods that we've consumed and forming the stool that then we can evacuate from this channel, all right? So we receive a liquid substance from the small intestine into the colon over here on this right-hand side. This portion of your colon called your cecum. It's then, I consider that it's inoculated. It's then washed, so to speak, with a germicide or a vermicide or a probiotic, a beneficial bacteria that's excreted or released from the appendix portion of the colon. So it comes into the cecum from the small intestine right there, that ileocecal valve, and it's then washed with beneficial bacteria that acts as a vermicide or a germicide from the appendix. That liquid material gets swished around as house rule churning mixes that liquid with the beneficial bacteria. And then the colon muscles expand and contract, it's what we call peristalsis, and force that liquid up the ascending colon, as then it's absorbing some of that liquid and forming stool. Sometimes, as it makes its way to this hepatic flexure, this curve underneath your liver and your gallbladder, the colon will actually send that liquid back down to the cecum for further absorption of liquid. All right, we call that anti-peristalsis. It's like anti-system. It's going against the regular system. The regular flow is going to be toward the evacuation channel. But in this case, this anti-peristalsis will force that liquid chyme, is what it's called, back toward the cecum for further absorption of liquid. Okay. By the time the chyme makes its way past the hepatic flexure, it begins to traverse across this transverse portion of your colon. And on your own bodies, that's going to be right above your navel. Okay. So if you can find your right hip bone a couple finger widths in towards your navel, is really close to the ileocecal valve and the appendix area, which is a really great thing to be aware of, because if you or your family or friends are ever concerned about a sensation that you're feeling on the right-hand side that isn't pleasant, and say, for example, you're experiencing nausea and fever with that sensation, if it's on this right-hand side because of the location of your appendix, as well as also we've got our gallbladder on the right-hand side, my suggestion is if you're concerned about anything on the right, you get it checked right away, okay? It's just a good thing to keep in your mind. Remember our little phrase, righty-tighty, lefty-loosey, you know, just to play it safe. If you're concerned about something on the right, get it checked right away. Compared to on the left, this left-hand portion of our colon that we refer to as the sigmoid colon, I think sigmoid signals. All right, you've got more nerve endings in this portion of your colon than you do in any other part of your colon. So that's where you get more communication signals from your bowel to your brain. All right, you already get a lot of communication signals from your intestinal tract to your brain. A lot of it is unconscious, we don't fully understand it, but science actually says that we have an enteric and peripheral nervous system that communicates more from the intestinal tract to the brain than vice versa. I think that's quite fascinating. I think that's where the term gut instincts have come from, or spilling our guts. When we say things like that, we're not exactly talking about pooping our pants. We're talking about speaking of things that maybe we had been holding in for a long time that's been heavy on our conscious. So anyways, when you're feeling things on this left-hand side, usually what has happened is the chyme has become more solid matter, like what we recognize when we defecate, and it goes across this transverse around your splenic flexure, which is the curve just below your spleen and your stomach. It drops down and through the descending and into the sigmoid. Your sigmoid colon expands to receive that, and it sends a signal to your brain that says, oop, time to poop, and you want to contract and then evacuate it through the rectum and out of your body. And if you're getting those signals on this left-hand side, that's normal, it's healthy, all right? Unlike some signals over here on the right-hand side, which maybe you might want to be concerned about. Maybe not, maybe it's just some movement, some gas, who knows? But a lot of times if it's on the left, it's better left alone, because on this left-hand side, it's normal, it's healthy to feel things on the left, all right? It's most likely you've expanded to receive something and you want to relax, go to the bathroom so that your body can naturally contract and you can evacuate. And then usually you feel a lot better. In fact, at that point, if you have a real good one, you might even feel so much better that we would call it PPE, post-poop euphoria, which is actually a physiological response that allows your body to experience sensations similar to oxytocin, where you actually are euphoric, you actually feel like you just can take on anything. You not only just contracted so that you evacuated what is no longer serving your higher self, but you made way for the new and the fresh and the vital. And then you can actually be absorbing healthy nutrition compared to stuff that's beginning to bacterially decompose and turn into something that if you don't evacuate it, it will rot. If things stagnate in this hot, wet, dark, alkaline to acidic, hopefully ideally mostly acidic environment at the stem of the colon, then certain foods are going to putrefy, like proteins. Concentrated animal proteins are going to spend a lot more time in your digestive tract than any other foods. It's natural, it's normal, it's actually even healthy for them to go through a putrefaction process. But if that putrefaction stagnates in your system, not so healthy, not so natural, and it's rotting. And if you have starchy carbohydrates that are stagnating in that environment longer than optimal, they can start to ferment, okay? What do we know about what happens when things ferment? Like say, for example, grapes. We produce alcohol. It produces alcohol. We make wine from them. If you've got fermentation and putrefaction going on in your colon or higher up in your intestinal tract, like your small intestine or your stomach, you're producing pressurous gases. I say pressurous because they're contained in this long, hollow tubular muscle of our digestive tract, which is then, pushing out on the digestive tract. And we're experiencing that as pressure. If it's happening in your stomach, you might be getting heartburn. It can begin to burn that esophageal valve, also known as the cardiac sphincter, which separates the esophagus from the stomach. If that burning is occurring and you get that heartburn, if it persists over the course of your life, it may be a precursor to esophageal cancer, okay? Not a pleasant thing. I can tell you right now, my stepfather had that. It was extraordinarily unpleasant. You want to avoid extra pressure in your intestinal tract in general. Diverticuli is the existence of a protruding pocket pushing out from the bowel walls where a weak point may have existed due to excessive pressure being contained and not being evacuated. So if you've got fermentation and putrefaction going on in your intestinal tract, which like I said is a normal healthy part of digestion of animal proteins, you want to make sure that that passes through your body quickly. 18 to 24 hours after you consume something, you want to have evacuated every last bit of fiber from that. All right? If it stagnates and something's putrefying and fermenting, you're going to be offsetting indole, skatol, ammonia, alcohol, I mentioned that before, cresol, formaldehyde. These are not just exotoxins that we are victims of from our polluted environment because we hire Mack trucks to deliver our food. They're what we call endotoxins. We're producing them within. It is avoidable, and I suggest that you avoid it by giving yourself an opportunity to have a bowel movement after every meal. By going within, connecting and listening, allowing energy to go within. It's part of your autonomic nervous system that sends energy to your digestive tract, so the functions that are involuntary, that we cannot will with our mind, can naturally occur, okay? Another great suggestion, and I've mentioned this in prior videos, is chew your food more thoroughly than you think you need to. When you're chewing, you are breaking open the cell structures, making the vital life nutrients bioavailable, very easily absorbable into your bloodstream. We cannot absorb whole food particles, all right? But it can stagnate and clog up our system and cause more putrefaction and fermentation, all right? It can also block receptor sites, which are necessary to absorb the nutrients that are in the proper size for absorption, okay? So chew your food more than you think you need to, rest and digest, allowing energy to go within, and then simply give yourself an opportunity to have a bowel movement after every meal. And visit your favorite local colon hydrotherapist. Up to 4 times a day, okay? Up to 4 times a year, yeah. Which is great seasonally when your food choices and your lifestyle are changing. It's a great time to cleanse and make room for the new and the fresh and the vital to enter. Colon hydrotherapy, again, it's very much like the name implies. We're simply hydrating your colon. Well, what's the hydration? It's water. It's purified water. It goes through an ultraviolet light to sterilize it. It also goes through a micron filtration system, so any large particles are removed from that water. All right, it's very clean, pure water. We also bless it here at our facility, Alderbrook. And
well, it's really important because you do those Chinese studies where you put the water down with the different words and all that stuff, and the molecules changed.
Absolutely, absolutely, I agree. And Dr. or I don't know if he's a doctor, but Measure Emoto has been heading those studies. I actually think he's from Japan, but I could be wrong. I have actually had the privilege of working with him, and it's remarkable. We are mostly water, so we really, it's so important to think of thoughts. My dad had a credo that he put together before he passed away, and that was the #1 thing on his list of important things in his life to do, as think good thoughts. It's #2, say good things, which is going to be a lot easier if you're not full of putrefying and fermenting stuff. When we're holding this stuff in, that gas can absorb into our bloodstream, go to our brain, and then we think stinky thoughts. And then we might speak not as nice as we otherwise would. So this might seem a little hokey pokey, but it's valid. I experience this in my everyday life. So anyways, back to the colon hydrotherapy. Is so funny, hokey pokey. There's no poking your bottom. There's no large speculum. I always think of duckbills, because I'm a woman. When I think of a speculum, it's a small, disposable, one-time use only, sterile tube that you lower onto. It's connected to a water spout, so it's stationary. It's unlike an enema where you've got a flexible tube that you can just put into your bottom. It's measured precisely, and you lower your body onto it so that it rests comfortably within you 2 inches. And I always show my clients very precisely how to do that with a little demo prior, and then I give you privacy to do that on your own time frame. And then it just stays resting comfortably in your bottom throughout the entire session. There's lubrication on there, so any delicate tissues around there are protected. And because it's less than the width of your pinky, there's a lot of room. It's not supposed to hurt at all in any way. If you feel like it's uncomfortable when you're trying to lower onto it, usually we need more lubrication, or we need to try to receive the tube at a different angle.